Hi, I'm Dr. Nechumi Yaffe. I'm a professor at Tel Aviv University, and I'm a political psychologist. And this is 18 questions from 40 Israeli thinkers by 1840.
So we'll begin where we always do. As an Israeli and as a Jew, how are you feeling at this moment in Israeli history?
I think we are at a very rough moment. I think especially today, as the news come up and there are so many people that are dying, and you see all those orphans and the numbers are accumulating, and you feel there's like a little bit of despair and a question, how will the solution look like? It seems like, so hopeless in a way. So I think it's just a very tough day today. And I think we are at a rough moment. Historically, I think there is a lot of many angles that are coming together. We established the state. We managed to come and, dry the sand and build a beautiful first world technology world. But it seems that some of the inner frictions and the inner conflicts that we are historically carrying, we are just trying to unpack it for the first time, and we just can't do it. We can't yet do it. It's like it feels, especially I feel like as a Haredi person, hearing all the sides and feeling, misunderstand, and also in so many ways being unable to broadcast to the outer world how my community thinks, and is it okay? And also I feel like it's very hard looking back into my community and realizing they don't understand the world that they are in. And actually, how do we broadcast back to my own community what's going on there in the world? So I just think it's a very tough moment of a lot of friction and misunderstanding.
Can you talk a little bit more specifically about what things you're thinking of that are making this moment so difficult for you?
So I think there is a very harsh, unyielding, unyielding demand from the Israeli society for ultra-Orthodox to, be part of the army and be part of those people who are protecting the land. And on the other hand, it seems that the Haredi community is kind of saying, we don't want to hear about any solutions. In a way, 2 years ago, there were more room for all kinds of solutions and all kind of, caving in some ways to find a bridging point. And it comes to this conflictual, tensious moments that there's just no one is considering any solutions. It's almost like a zero-sum game, this moment. And I feel like today, the whole day, I was busy talking to all kinds of, decision makers in the Haredi world, in politics, in the rabbinical kind of circles, to just let back the community understand why people are so rageous about the community. And it seems like no one is getting it. The outside world is not getting it. The community is not getting it. So I feel like today is just
Like a mutual misunderstanding.
Yes, and I think that it definitely has to do with the the toil of death. It's just very tough. So today is a hard day. I'm sorry.
No. What has been Israel's greatest success and greatest mistake in the current war against Hamas?
Whoa, that's a very big question. I think the mistake is definitely we were not ready. We were arrogant in a way. We thought, like, we looked down on them. We thought they cannot come up with such a plan, such a magnitude. We didn't think they are up to it. And I think it has to do with a general despise and arrogance we have towards them, just not towards Palestinians, and and towards their challenges. And we just think like They're not as smart and sophisticated as us. And I don't think some of us realize they really mean it. They really mean it. They really want sovereignty. They really want independence. And there's some intensity to it that I think some people just don't understand. If they would understand it and respect it, maybe they would be more willing to consider some peaceful and some negotiable solutions. So I think there is arrogance.
That's something that you see as from before the war, but also since the war began.
Yes, I think since the war began, so I think this is the biggest mistake. It led us to this moment. There was a shifting point that Israel managed to release those 4 soldiers with no money this Shabbos. I think there was like a moral shift there that was really, we needed it, because there was a lot of humiliation in the October 7th. It wasn't just the death, it was just our vulnerability was so exposed. And, in a way, Zionism was this endeavor to say never again. And for a day, it failed. We have to remember, it was for a day, but it was, people just are sore from it still. So I think there was something about, kind of like releasing those 4 hostages that changed people's moral.
As the greatest success, you think?
No, I think it was like a shift in the,
okay, fine.
I think at the end of the day, our ability to kill in Nasrallah was a bad man, and Sinawar that are bad men that are taking their own people into death and are stubborn and unnegotiable, taking them out of the equation is a success, because now maybe their followers would be more, negotiable. So I think it's the biggest success. Also, I think Israel, technologies, and ability to defend itself with, with Iran's missiles. All those things are, kind of zokefet kumatenu. I don't know what the English version would be. Just to give people their dignities that they was so hurt, so deeply hurt on October 7th. So I don't know if there's just one, all of it accumulates.
How have your religious views changed since October 7th?
I think it's fluctuate, to be honest. I was very, very angry on Hashem. I was like, why? Why do we deserve it? We try to be good. We are trying to do good in the world. I think there are so many people who are invested in doing good. So many people are invested in peace endeavors. And they were the first to die, So many of the victims of October 7th are people that were very invested in the peace process. And I felt like we don't deserve it. We don't deserve it as Jews. Like, why can't we just come to our land and live peacefully? Why do we have to have this massacre? I was really angry, so angry. And
have you found resolution to that answer?
I feel like maybe it's just the reason that we are just not left to live like a normal, boring life is weird providence, but it's like we matter. I don't know. We are being called for something. I don't know what it is, but it feels like the normal thing would be we should just have peace. We should come to an agreement and live our life like, so many nations around the world are just living their life. But we don't get to do it. We don't get to do it. And we again and again in the center of the world news, always making into the headlines. It's like we have an historical mission that we have to figure out through this war, through this conflict. So I feel like some of the prayers became more meaningful.
Any in particular that you're thinking of?
Shmonesre. I don't know why. Maybe it's just a ritual. Maybe it's just, it's just like, you can give meaning to all of the brachot, but just, has all of it have just more meaning. And there's something about the ritual practice that kind of hold the reality in moments that it's so fragile.
What do you mean by that?
I feel like in the first few weeks, just adherence to, prayer, adherence to religious lifestyle really helps you kind of like hold your world together. You don't feel it's like all shattered.
It grounds you.
Yeah, it grounds you, and it like kind of holds the world for you. And I think there is something every Chag since has a much deeper meaning, and understanding we are in a journey in history. And there's something about the Chagim that actually it's like, it's a spiral in time that you go back to some moment and the history accumulates on the Chagim, and there is just deeper meaning in every Chag. The Sukkot, we had like picture of the Chatufim in the Sukkah, and I felt like we want to bring it under the Sukkah to give them the protection, to give them the Betzela de Mehunuta, to be under, so just every Chag has a more deep meaning. So in a way, there is the anger, but there is the depth of the religion.
It's very interesting, I think, also to ask you specifically this question, because kind of as we spoke about before, this interview and a lot of your work, you find yourself in a lot of different camps, religiously and politically as well, that often don't align.
Right.
As a Haredi woman, as someone who's part of Smol Ha-Emuni, the religious left, which, our viewers probably will hear about in my introduction, so I don't think we'll need a little synopsis here. And then also someone who's in the world of academia and in broader Israeli society. I'm curious how those different parts of your identity have been shaping your experience with this as someone, I guess specifically part of Smol Ha-Emuni, which is a newer movement that's fermenting in Israel.
Actually, the Smol Ha-Emuni is tidying up some of my world. So it's finding a way where I can talk about me being religious, me being spiritual in a political world, and bringing some of the ideas that are more in the academic sphere or more in the broader secular world, finding some language that can deal with it. Because I think there's something very interesting with the Smol Ha-Emuni is that is kind of attending to some ideas that are not naturally rooted in what we do call religious life. Because I feel like,
such as what?
For so many generations, Jews were persecuted, and they couldn't think about the greater good outside of survival. So they couldn't think about humanity, about seeing human beings for what they are, because they had to survive, as opposed to their neighbors who, kind of, wanted them to die. So they couldn't see a more humanistic. They couldn't dwell on humanistic values because they had to, kind of be focused on their own identity and their own group. There's something about the Smol Ha-Emuni that is tying up and finding a religious language to talk about some of the universal values, some of the, social justice, things that are usually a little bit outside of what was for 2,000 years a survival mechanism for Jewish life. So you have here and there. So we kind of tying it up to a more close, tight story, but Jews had to just deal with other things. So there's something about Smol Ha-Emuni that helps me tie my spiritual world, the world that wants things to be just right and moral and straight, and values that are not just religious values, being, shomer Torah mitzvot and being loyal to your own people. So it's being loyal to your own people, but just seeing the other people as well.
What does that look like for you since October 7th?
Hard, but yet very, very.
What's been hard about it?
I think the first few weeks, no one could see anyone but the Israeli society. I remember in the first week saying, what's going to be coming now for Gaza? Wearing by the children, understanding this day, what's has been done, and understanding that needs to be a reaction because we need to survive, we can't die, but understanding the ramification. And only my friends from Smol Ha-Emuni could, understand it. Said it's actually going to be very complicated. I remember even like we were like thinking of writing something about like not stopping humanitarian aid, and not צריכים למזונות. It says that when you are saging a city, you are bringing in bread and water. And speaking to some of my friends, like, there are children there, and we have to make sure we still keep in Jewish law, which is like you do give, food and water. And so this was the only circles that I could talk about it, and still care more about my family as Israelis and as Jews, but also acknowledging there's other people out there. Also, we had some, getting together, groups and praying together and learning and we had a class, a Torah shiur every week, just to, to learn and just to come together around Jewish texts, around Jewish tradition, around things that are, makes up what we are, our identity, because I think it's woven. And I think being Haredi is, for many years, at least in the Israeli community, being Haredi was not automatically assumed to be on the right wing, because through the years, the ultra-Orthodox community was more left than right.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Left in what sense?
Peace oriented,
The Haredi community.
we don't know about the community because that's very interesting. I just wrote a paper. We never collected data. So we don't know what people thought.
Haredi leaders, you're saying?
Yeah, Haredi leaders were always dovish,
Really?
always going with the left parties, but we have to acknowledge that the left were in the power. So were they going with the power, or were they going with being dovish? We do know that some of the rabbanim were very dovish. Rav Shach, he came out with claims that are, we have to be very careful. We have to, we can't dwell. He was against, Modi'in elite, because it was like on land, it was mitnachlim actually, and he was against it, and he was like pro-peace, and he was pro-negotiation, and Rav Ovadia Yosef is the one who was backed Oslo, So
did you feel like that was getting, or that's gotten the type of coverage that reflects that? Because I've never heard that. Like, I mean, not doubting it. I'm almost surprised that hasn't been something that's been part of, I think, conversations or part of general history.
It's interesting. I mean, I
Have
grew
you found
up.
that to be the case, or?
I grew up knowing it, and I wrote the textbook for 11th and 12th grades, all Haredi high school. So it's in my textbook.
Oh,
I made
really?
sure
Oh, wow.
it's in my textbooks. Ovadia, Rav Shach, just saying that, so students in the Haredi community learn it. So, but I do not know what people thought. I know what the leaders were thinking and how they were voting. Now we have data. And in our data, we do see people that are really very much on the right, the hawkish kind of, but also the leaders are more hawkish. So you don't know what was before. The leaders were definitely more dovish.
What do you look for in deciding which Knesset party to vote for?
Integrity, someone honest, that I can rely on his word, someone that has a vision, someone that just want something, has a direction. Where is this country going for, and want to get us. I feel like it's part of leaders' job to get us from point A to point B. So they should have a plan. It's hard to get. Yeah.
I've heard. Which is more important for Israel, Judaism or democracy?
Well, it's a very good question. I don't know how to answer it. I think...
Walk us through your thought process.
Okay. So I think this hybrid that is very special. And I want to say something. As a Haredi person, actually, being realistic, there is no Haredi community which is not in a very democratic kind of city. Most Haredi communities are urban and are located in the most democratic areas in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We have no Haredi community in, Arizona or Utah, and we have it in New York and
Meaning
New
it depends
Jersey.
on the country being democratic.
Yeah, so there's something about the Haredi community which is tied to being urban and democratic. Okay, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it has to do with the ideology in a way. They can oppose to some of the democratic values, but they want really. It's kind of like a little bit of a opposing kind of ideology. So it's very hard to oppose to something that is very too much in line with your own. So it was the Haredi community was established as avant-garde, as a movement against, and it still keeps their against kind of ideology, and in a way it needs the other in order to flourish and to keep its own ideology. So I don't think it's a coincidence that they are living in the most liberal, democratic cities. So as a Haredi person, I don't think we gonna end up living if it won't be a democracy. I think if this would be just a democracy, so it would be just like any other country in the world. And in a way, we can't live in Israel without having a Jewish flavor and Jewish, weight to it. I do think so for many, many years, due to exile, Jewish thought and philosophy did not develop well enough and fast enough to accurately encounter questions that has to do with modern world. Economy, policy, that has to do with like a country. How do you establish roads? So in a way, I feel like Jewish thought and practice is not ripe to be by its own without democracy. So I wouldn't want to I don't. So what it look like? Because most of the majority of Jewish writing does not relate to a modern world. So how could it be a Jewish state without democracy? In a way, it just doesn't. It's not ripe. So I want it to stay Jewish and democracy.
Many liberals and secular Israelis have written a lot about the Haredi group, the birth rate, and Haredim are going to. They have it's ironically like some sort of fear Haredim are going to take over the country. But from what you're saying, it doesn't seem like. Let's entertain that understanding of Haredi birth rate and what the potential is. Haredim are looking to quote unquote make a Haredi Israel, but in some sense, it does. Do you feel like that is what the political leaders in the Haredi world are trying to reflect
I
or
know.
trying to cultivate?
I think that none of the Haredi politicians are ready to be not even a majority, to be even they're not ready for the powers that they own. They're not ready for the weight that they found themselves in. And I think they are very perplexed by it, because they understand for the first time, some of the time understand that their decision, they were so focused and getting scores and points for their own community, and never took in account actually when we pass a law, it has to relate to the entire country. And they were not ready for it, because they were raised and their whole thing was as a minority to get points for their community, to play this kind of game. And now they accidentally found themselves as in a position that they actually have to take into account the entire country.
Which isn't that a bit what the Knesset model of coalitions requires, that each party has its own specific interests?
Yes, but they're 30% of the government, which means their weight is way more than their actual, way more of the actual percentile in the population, because their percentage is only 13%, and their weight is 30%, 31 actually. So they're not ready for this position of power. and they are perplexed by it, because when they do decisions, it affect. They have to make decisions for the entire country, not their own community. They can only think about their own community, and it gives them very hard, a big headache. It's a game they're not prepared for. So this is like challenging. I don't think the Haredi community was ever designed in the way it is now to have such an influence. And I don't think they want this influence. They want to kind of take care of their own community, but now they kind of like faced with a different reality.
Should Israel treat its Jewish and non-Jewish citizens the same?
Yes.
You say more about that?
What's there to say? Don't we want to be treated the same way as other citizens all over the world? Why don't we walk the talk? For so many generations, we were claiming against everyone else. Why don't you see us as citizens? And now with the win power, we won't see the others as citizens? End of story.
Now that Israel already exists, what's the purpose of Zionism?
I think Zionism is not concrete. Like building a building, and once the building is done, we're done. No, I think it's a mission. I think it's a vision of a world of justice, of a world of advancement, and for the Jewish people and for the world. So I think like part of Zionism was bringing Jews together to live together. And we can't do it. So we are very far from actualizing what Zionism is. So I think Zionism is like an idea, and we haven't achieved it yet. We're just on a process. We managed to do maybe the easiest part, which is the physical part. Okay, now we have the social part and the spiritual part of finding what our mission as Jews in a modern world, and what our contribution in the modern world. We don't have words to talk about it. We don't know what it looks like. So no, we haven't achieved Zionism yet.
Do you see Smol Ha-Emuni as working towards actualizing that, or you see it as serving a different purpose?
Yes. I think this is part of it. Maybe I would want to add that I think is not the only solution, but I think it's part of the solution. I don't think I want to be in a world that everyone is just one, one way. So if there is a Smol Ha-Emuni, should be a Yamin Ha-Emuni, but should be a little different than what there is today. And I think more humanistic, more merciful.
What would make it different than Smol Ha-Emuni?
I think the difference between left and right boils down to what do you prioritize. I think everything is very important for everyone, and we want to get it all. But some things are more important to different people and different intensity. So, you can talk about Haidt, Jonathan Haidt's, moral foundation theory, and his, the way he prioritizes different morals. So it's a very simple way of talking. So I think like for people in the left side, morals like care and, avoiding harm are very important. And people that in the right side, morals like purity are very important. So I think each one brings to the table different values and different, weight to them. And there's different colors to this pie. So.
Is opposing Zionism inherently anti-Semitic?
Yes. I mean, whatever. The question is about Zionism. If Zionism is just the establishing of a Jewish country, who cares about who is affected by it? So maybe it's not Zionism. But if Zionism is actualizing not a colonialistic idea of the 19th century, yeah? So if Zionism is, 19th century colonialistic project, opposing it is just, opposing colonialism. But if Zionism is actualizing a Jewish few thousand yearning to sovereignty, to, being on your own place, having a home and having a place where you can flourish as people. So opposing to this is just hating Jews. So it depends how you define Zionism.
How would you say the opposition towards Zionism has evolved in the Haredi community today? Because I feel like one of the interesting things that people always bring up with the question of Zionism is the different relationships that internal. I think there's like Jewish communities, so to speak, of like Jewish Voice for Peace, and then there's Jewish communities of, especially I think most come to mind are like the more right-wing yeshivish or Haredi communities in America, and then even in Israel as well. Like there was just recently a video that was going viral on Twitter. I don't know if you're on Twitter, of someone in Mea Sharm, and he was pulling down a Palestinian flag that was hung up there.
Yeah.
That I think the Neturei Karta put
Yeah,
up.
right.
So I'm curious, like how you've seen that develop and how you think of that, because then obviously, like studying the Haredi community, living there and being in that world is very much.
I think like most people, like those people are just are they don't understand the context. Some of them, most of them.
And do you think it's as widespread as people think, or that it's
no? I can tell you, it's between 2 to 5% out of 100. Okay, so we have the data. So the opposing
2 to 5% who are
opposing Zionism as ideology. Like,
wow.
Okay, and then there is like another 12% of people who are just leaning towards it, but they would never. They would oppose to like hanging. So I think it's just very. So in America, I've studied the community in America. I've done a very deep research in Satmar. So I can tell you Satmar is really opposing Zionism. On my study, I asked some of the things. I asked like part of it was like an experimental study about norm violation. It's very interesting. And one of the questions that people had to answer is like, would you want the community to change? And now it needs to be changed. So as part of the good way that...
Which community?
The Satmar
community?
Yeah.
Okay.
So some of the answers that I've got is people telling me more people need to resist the state of Israel as a way of a spiritual strengthening. So living in America and being in that community, I lived in Borough Park and I did the experiment in Williamsboro. I saw firsthand that there is a real opposition to Zionism in a way that almost very very rarely exists in Israel. So in Israel, we're talking about really a very, very small percentile. In America, it's much bigger. First of all, Satmar, which opposes Israel, is centered in America. And I think it's easier to believe that Zionism is against being Jewish when you're in America and you don't see how Jewish this country is and how Jewish and how religious Zionism is. So it's easier to believe it when you live in it and you're just buying off the lies from whoever sells it. But when you live in it and you see how Shabbos is kept here and how Jewish all the seculars are, they're not even secular. I feel like there are no seculars in Israel, they're so Jewish. So it's harder to believe it. So you're not as much against Zionism.
Should Israel be a religious state?
Is there any democracy which is religious?
What do you think?
I mean, I can tell you geopolitically that Germany is quite a religious country. Also, actually, the northern state is Swedish. They have like, a cross on their flag. They have a religious, but they have a very, very deep, especially the northern country, very deep democracy tradition. I think if there is a way to keep democratic values with being Jewish, so this would be the solution. I think like Jewish law just never attended to questions of modern world, so it's not ripe.
What do you mean by that?
There is hardly any writing through the last 2,000 years of how actually to run a state. I mean, the Rambam wrote in L'chot Melachim all kind of things that are not applicable to this world. There is no, there is a lot of Roman, Greek philosophy about running a state in a country because they were doing it. We were not doing it. We were under, other rulers, and those questions we never had to attend. So we didn't develop a Jewish tradition of how to think about it. So we're not there yet. We're lacking the knowledge. So it can't be just a Jewish religious state. We're not there. It's a fantasy. We need to develop writing and some tradition of how to run power, how to do it in real world. And then we can maybe think of a only Jewish state. Right now, Jewish and state just don't align. It's like not understanding what the state is and what Jewish is. Just that we only had 75 years of sovereignty. It's very, very, very new.
When you think about the writings of like Rav Shlomo Goran or Rav Herzog, do you see those as, for our listeners, big Israeli rabbis,
Yes.
very big Israeli rabbis who had written about
Right.
their visions for
Right.
religious Israel.
Right.
Do you see that as heading in the direction that you're imagining?
Some of it. Rav Kook's some of his writing and some of it, but it's very preliminary. It's very hard to write real policy, the way policy works from their writing. It's inspiring, it's great, but can you pass a law? Did they know how, the whole procedure? No. Just let's be honest about it. We knew the game. So I don't know how it looks like. We need more time. I think we can use the secular law for now. It's good.
If you were making the case for Israel, where would you begin?
I love it. I feel they are at home. I think very special people. We have a very intense, tied up group of people that want to do the good and the right thing for their country, for the world, trapped in a very hostile conflict, navigating it. Is this a case for Israel? I don't know.
What do you think?
Depends on the audience. Depends a case in front of whom. What are you trying to advocate? Is it like inner? Is it outer? To whom are we talking? This is what I'm telling to myself. Okay, this is the case I make for myself. I love it. It's home.
Should all Israelis serve in the army?
All Israelis should contribute to the country, with no exception. Is the army the only option? I don't know. Can you take people that were educated in a very, very different way, very foreign to the way military works and, the laws of military, and overnight change it? No.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, I think growing up in a Haredi community, the IDF was very foreign. Was the Daman, Satan, Daman?
The demon.
Demon, thank you.
You're saying this is from your upbringing, or you're saying from what
my
you studied?
upbringing,
Oh, wow.
and also from my studies. And I want to shift a little over and speak about research that I've done on Haredi people violated their community norms and enlisted in the army, and their social price. They want to be accepted by the community, but the community is just rejecting them. And in a line of research, I've shown how this affects their well-being and how this affects the community back. Actually, it's not a good process for the community as well.
Why? What's the effect on the community?
They feel that their community, although they are stigmatizing, the more they stigmatize those men who enlisted to the army, the more they feel that their community is not a great community, and they have a weaker sense of belonging to the community. And belonging to the community is a very, very important
Meaning, just
protective.
to clarify, that the more that they stigmatize the Haredim who decide to draft in the army, the community themselves feels more isolated from Israel.
No, they feel that they are not such great people. They're not such good
They don't
people.
like stigmatizing, but they.
Yes, they kind of like, the more you do it, you actually think you're not such great, and you don't want to be, you want to be less associated with your own community. So being part of a community has many, many, many protective factors to your well-being, and it's considered one of the things that helps you keep your life happier, more content, have meaning. It's just like the research shows again and again how important it is to be part of a community. So it's funny. So it's like the way I describe it, it's like poison. So when you're trying to poison someone and you hold it with your own hand, you are getting a burn. So those who stigmatize other people are actually paying a price by themselves. They are losing the protective factor of the community, which is like a bad. So this is like the inner process of the community itself. But growing up as Haredi, you just don't understand the army. Growing up as Haredi, you don't understand well enough secular law. You don't understand enough what the army is about. And I think you just need a different kind of education in order to make it to the army.
Why does not understanding secular law or that the educational background matter in the conversation about, specifically for Haredim? It may be relevant for other
Okay,
populations in
because
Israel as
I
well,
feel
but
like
for
being
Haredim to ask
Haredi,
this.
you grew up in a very monolithic kind of thinking of right and wrong, very black and white, right and wrong, us and them, Yidden and Goyim, So this is like kind of an extreme way of thinking. So taking an extreme group and giving them weapons, well, what can go wrong? So I just think like there is no ripeness. It doesn't mean they don't have to serve. It doesn't mean they don't have to give away some of their years in order to protect the family, they protect their country, which ends up protecting their own families. It just means that the solutions need to be tailored better, much better. And also, I feel like not acknowledging that going to the army is gonna, it's spiritual, being suicidal spiritually, it's just, lying. Because even for many years, even, religious Zionist boys who went to the army stopped being religious. And this is why they established all mechinot, So all those religious Zionistic boys are being educated from day one. They need to go to the army, and then they go to the mechinot to prepare them, and then they make it into the army. Okay, so taking Haredim were taught from day one that the army is the worst thing. You go into the army, and one day you become a goy, and then like expecting them to do it. It just doesn't work like this. I mean, some social changes are just not doable from one day to the next.
I have two quick follow-up questions on that. One, when you're speaking about the risks of putting a community that now doesn't necessarily have the same educational background as the rest of Israeli society into the army, is that something that you're speaking about from like a theory and an analysis, or from research that you've done in your work, or that, like evidenced by?
I mean, we don't have that many evidence, but I think it's just like the way you understand the community just leads you to there. You just. But again, there is so much that can be done tomorrow. Just the army itself, like everyone is like blaming the Haredim, but the truth is the army is not ready for this event as well. The army is not ready for the event of 60,000 Haredi men coming into its front door. They're not equipped. They can't give the achsharim. They can't give. It's like, it's just not understanding it. I don't think one shouldn't actually try to start to facilitate and try to do some changing, but it's just not overnight change.
So the last follow-up on this, then we'll go to the next
Yes.
question. given that you're obviously the Haredi draft is something that's been in the news it's been a subject for since the founding of Israel, but more recently it's been a very big subject, specifically since October 7th and the extended Miluim for a lot of
Yes.
soldiers and reservists. How do you see, or what do you think is the right way forward in that conversation or in that
I think the
debate?
right way forward is establishing options for Haredi boys that wants to
But
go.
at least for the here and now,
For
where
here and now, tomorrow, I mean, actually, there are some yeshivot, but for here and now, try to get the Rabbanim and the politician to come up with some solutions that so many boys that are actually not learning are cooking, are doing things that don't need much training and could be, could be done
can
really.
help the war effort in a
Yes,
different way.
yes, they can help the war in different way. Should be, there's so many things that can be done instead of those people in Minuim or, it's just
Mm-hmm.
like,
Can questioning the actions of Israel's government and army, even in the context of this war, can that be a valid form of love and patriotism?
yes, yes. When you love something, you want to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
When I want to fix something broken in my home, it's because I like my home. It's not because I hate my home. If I hate my home, I just live it.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to fix it, I love it. It's harder to want to fix than just like ignore. It's really believing that things can be fixed and like looking at what was broken and wanting to fix it.
What do you think is the most legitimate criticism leveled against Israel today?
I don't know if there was real offers for bringing back the hostages and having a ceasefire. I just don't know if there were any real attempts because I feel like we've been fed from the news and it's all orchestrated. But if there were some real attempts and we haven't taken it, that's a real criticism.
Can you say more about that?
I feel like there were rumors about like, offers of bringing back the hostages and having a ceasefire. And I think there should be Israel's, Israel should grab it. Israel should not want to keep doing this war, not keep wanting its own people to die, not having to kill other people. We are killing other people too. And Israel should just grab one of those opportunities if there were real opportunities. I don't know. I feel like we don't know. And I think those things we only going to know in a few years. Was there a real offer? Or was it just people who just wish for an offer, but there was not an offer on the table. So
Do you think the state of Israel is part of the final redemption?
yes,
Can you say more about that?
I think Hashem. I would say a religious answer. I grew up a Haredi, and one of the claims that growing up Haredi was that the Haredi, the Israelis, being anti-Zionist was Zionist. The claim was that Israel had all those refugees from North Africa, the Mizrahi refugees. They all came in religious, and Israel made them all secular. Right?
Growing up, that's what you had heard her saying.
Yes. This was one of the, the ideas. Why are we against the state? Because, being Haredi is like not being Zionist. But actually, I'm a history teacher. This is my claim to fame. And understanding history and also understanding what happened to other, people who immigrated outside their own, Morocco and Iraq and all those places. What happened to them when they went to other countries? So this is very clear. People immigrated from Morocco. Most big percent of them were not religious to begin with. And they were what we call today traditional. And they stayed traditional. Actually, a big percent of them became more religious here through Shas. A. B. So many people who immigrated to other countries are completely assimilated. They're not even Jewish. Their grandchildren are married people outside the Jewish world as well. So this is just actually actually, it's Hashem's way to protect the Jewish people is to bring them all to Eretz Israel and to keep them Jewish. So yes, it is definitely part of the redemption.
Do you think peace between Israelis and Palestinians will happen within your lifetime?
I don't know. It's a question that I've asked myself this year a lot. I don't know.
I see as we're talking, you're getting very emotional. Can you
Yes,
say why?
because this year made me realize that maybe we're very much far than I thought we were. I thought like, it's just gonna happen. But now I'm thinking maybe we need more time. Maybe there is no ripeness. It's
What,
just so frustrating to think that it's so frustrating. It's unbearable. It's very hard.
what do you think makes you feel so connected to this in such a personal way?
I hate being in this conflict. I hate the idea that we are being killed and we have to kill. I just don't want to be in it. Don't want to be in it. And I'm always telling myself, okay, so we're just gonna have peace. We're just gonna have peace. But this year made me realize that it's we far than I thought we were.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, the Abraham Accords, it's just gonna happen. It's almost happening. It's almost happening.
Do you feel like it's challenged your religious world? I know we touched on that briefly since October 7th, but I'm curious, at least for this aspect.
No, not my religious world. It did challenge my my question of being effective.
Mm.
What
Effective in.
what can I do? The questions that I ask myself: Can I move the needle anywhere? Can I do something? I don't know. It's hard.
What do you think should happen with Gaza and the Palestinian-Israeli conflict after the war?
I don't know. I used to have answers. I don't know anymore. I had a plan. They were just becoming modernized, like Saudi Arabia, like Dubai. They were just becoming modernized. They were just becoming a democracy. They're just gonna, they're building hospitals, they're building universities. They want life. They want to have normal life, and we want life, and we want just to be in our own. We want peace. We want to be in our own limited space and just flourish. And now it seems more complicated. Maybe we want other things. Maybe it seems like they want other things more.
What things do you think we want, and what things do you think they want that you weren't
I
thinking about
think
before?
we want more powers than I thought we want. We want more space that I thought we want.
We being
The government. And I think they want to have it their way more than they want just life or democracy or state. I mean, you look at the billions of dollars that they invested in those tunnels, and the poverty that their own people live in. And they chose ideas over people. You see it. So your ability to say it's just gonna happen, chick-chack, kashe.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel Smol Ha-Emuni is trying to meet that difficult space?
I think, first of all, like hanging up to hope that yes, there will be hope. Yes, there will be life. Yes, people will choose right at the end of the day. I think it's a lot Smol Ha-Emuni. and talking about it and having friends who understanding, and it's a big deal.
Where do you identify on Israel's political and religious spectrum? And do you have friends on the other side? It's a silly question given our conversation, but I have to ask anyway.
Okay, so I identify as a lefty and as a religious person, and I have many friends, and actually my entire family is right wing, and some of them are extreme right wing.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are really extreme right wing for many years. I have a sister who would be voting to Ben-Gvir the past 10 years. So it's very difficult. And I feel like I have friends all over the political spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
and also all over the religious spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
I have friends who are extremely way more religious than I am. People way more extremely religious than I am. Some of them are my family, some of them are friends, and I have people who are on all the quantum of being religious, on all the and some of them who identify as atheists as well. I'm in Tel Aviv University.
Has it been hard to maintain those relationships? I think family is always difficult. On the 1840 channel, which is our main podcast, we always do a series called Intergenerational Divergence about the ways families grapple with differences. I'm curious in your case how you find, given your presumably religiously being in the same world, but politically being so
Very hard,
diverse.
very painful. And the Sukkot, all the family came together, and my uncle started speaking against lefties, and he actually attacked me personally. And he's an older man. I mean, to everyone else, I can fight back, and usually I'm like, I know.
Sukkot is like the Jewish version of Thanksgiving, where it's
Yes, exactly. And I know to talk, and I usually when it's a conversation or a debate, I can win over. But he's an older man. I can't speak up and tell him like you're whatever he's saying is shtiyot, but you don't know what you just don't whatever, and bring him fact. I can't. So I just had to leave the sukkah because I just didn't. I find it very offensive, and I did not want to, I have, and also like I feel like he can't understand, and he's only gonna get offended, and it's very difficult. And in the family, we are trying, at least when I'm there, not to talk politics.
Do you find it difficult in your community, or you find that there are
My community at the end of the day is my friends and my family. So they know what I think. They, we talk about it. And my brother, I have two brothers, they're so cute. They all tell me, oh, we tease you because you're the only one who actually bring a new thought to the conversation. We like in an ecosystem, we always hear the same opinions. And you come up and you say something else. It's so refreshing. And they still like right wing, but it's like they acknowledge it. Like it's like a new way of thinking of things, and they love it. And my friends as well. And also it's not so easy in the Tel Aviv University because some of them are anti-religious, and they don't get it. They feel
the other part of your identity falls under attack?
Yeah, because they feel like, oh, okay, my imaginary friend, Hashem, my stories. And they actually say it like your stories. And I'm okay with it. I feel like the closer you are to people, the more confrontational you can be, and the more honest in your own conversation you can be with people and tell them like, so it's not like my family. I can't really confront them the way I confront my family, but I have some very close friends, and I can talk to them more about my faith and my spirituality and my religion. Also in Tel Aviv University.
For our last question, number 18, there are a lot of follow-ups in between, so I'm sure you maybe tried and lost count
I
along
lost
the way.
track.
Do you have more hope or fear for Israel and the Jewish people?
I definitely have more hope for the Jewish people. Easy. I have a lot of fear towards Israel. I don't think I don't have a hope at all. I have a hope. I just have a lot of fear. As he asked me, I don't know when will we be able to achieve it. But Yeshuat Hashem Kerefein. This is like my new line. Hashem can make, flip things overnight, So maybe, I hang up on it. Shuat Hashem ke'eref ayin.
Well, Nechumi, thank you so much for answering our 18 questions.